Yeah, so the industry starts really small, where computers aren't personal, and then through the microprocessor and a bunch of companies, we get the personal computer. IBM, Apple, and Microsoft got to be very involved in the software. Even the basic interpreter on the Apple II, very obscure fact, was something that I did for Apple. And that idea that, wow, this is a tool that, at least for editing documents, that you have to do all the writing, that was pretty amazing. And then connecting those up over the internet was amazing. And then moving the computation into the mobile phone was absolutely amazing. So, once you get the PC, the internet, the software industry, and the mobile phone, the digital world is changing huge parts of our activities. I was just in India, seeing this, how they do payments digitally, even, for government programs. It's an amazing application of that world to help people who never would have bank accounts because the fees are just too high. It's too complicated. And so we continue to benefit from that foundation. I do view this, the beginning of computers that read and write, as every bit as profound as any one of those steps. And a little bit surprising because robotics has gone a little slower than I would have expected. And I don't mean autonomous driving. I think that's a special case that's particularly hard because of the open-ended environment and the difficulty of safety and what safety bar people will bring to that. But even factories where you actually have a huge control over the environment of what's going on, and you can make sure that, no kids are running around anywhere near that factory. So, a little bit people have saying, okay, these guys can overpredict, which that's certainly correct. But here's a case where, we underpredicted that natural language and the computer's ability to deal with that and how that affects white collar jobs, including sales, service, helping a doctor think through what to put in your health record. That I thought was many years off. And so all the AI books, even when they talk about things that might get a lot more productive, will turn out to be wrong. And because we're just at the start of this, you could almost call it a mania, like the internet mania. Yeah. But, the internet mania, although it had its insanities and things that, I don't know, sock puppets or things where you look back and say, what were we thinking? It was a very profound tool that now we take for granted. And, even just for scientific discovery, during the pandemic, the utility of the immediate sharing that took place there was just phenomenal. And so this is as big a breakthrough, a milestone, as I've seen in the whole digital computer realm, which really starts when I'm quite young.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to say this to you, and I'm just interested in your reaction because like you will always tell me when an idea is dumb. But like one of the things that I've been thinking for the last handful of years is that one of the big changes that's happening because of this technology is that for 180 years from the point that Ada Lovelace wrote the first program to harness the power of a digital machine up until today, the way that you get a digital machine to do work for you is you either have to be a skilled programmer, which is like a barrier to entry that's not easy, or you have to have a skilled programmer anticipate the needs of the user and to build a piece of software that you can then use to get the machine to do something for you. And this may be the point where we get that paradigm to change a little bit, where because you have this natural language interface and these AIs can write code and like they will be able to actuate a whole bunch of services and systems that, yeah, we sort of give ordinary people the ability to get very complicated things done with machines without having to have like all of this expertise that you and I spent many, many years, building.
No, absolutely. Every advance, hopefully lowers the bar in terms of who can easily take advantage of it. The spreadsheet was an example of that, because even though you still have to understand these formulas, you really didn't have to understand logic or symbols much at all. And it had the input and the output so closely connected in this grid structure that you didn't think about the separation of those two. And that's kind of limiting in a way to a super abstract thinker, but it was so powerful in terms of the directness. Oh, that didn't come out right. Let me change it. Here, there's a whole class of programs of taking like corporate data and presenting it, or doing complex queries against, okay, have there been any sales offices where we've had 20% of the headcount missing, and are sales results affected by that? You could now you don't have to go to the IT department and wait in line and have them tell you, oh, that's, too hard or something. Most of these corporate learning things, whether it's a query or a report or even a simple workflow where if something happens, you want to trigger an activity, the description in English will be the program. And when you want it to do something extra, you'll just pull out that English or whatever your language is and type that in. And, so there's a whole layer of, query assistance and programming that will be accessible to any employee. And, the same thing is true of, okay, I'm somewhere in the college application process and I want to know, okay, what's my next step and what's the threshold for these things? It's so opaque today. So empowering people to go directly and interact is the theme that this is trying to enable.
So I wonder what some of the things are that you are most excited about, just in terms of application of the technology to the things that you care about deeply from the foundation of your personal perspective. So you care a lot about education, public health, climate, and sustainable energy. You have all of these things that you're working on, and like, have you been thinking about how this technology impacts any of those things?
Yeah, it's been fantastic that even going back to the fall, OpenAI and Microsoft have engaged with people at the Gates Foundation thinking about the health stuff and the education stuff. In fact, Peter Lee's going to be publishing some of his thinking, which is somewhat focused on rich world health, but it's pretty obvious how that work, in a sense, is even more amazing in health systems where you have so few doctors, and getting advice of any kind is so incredibly difficult. And so it is incredible to look at saying, okay, can we have a personal tutor that helps you out? Can you, when you write something, if you're going to some amazing school, yes, the teacher may go line by line and give you feedback, but a lot of kids just don't get that much feedback on the writing. And it looks like, configured properly, this is a great tool to give you feedback on writing. It's also ironic in a way that, people are saying, well, what does it mean that, can people cheat and turn in computer writing? Kind of like when calculators came along, that, oh my goodness, what are we going to do about adding and subtracting? And of course, they did create contexts where you couldn't use the calculator, and they did we got through that without it being a huge problem. So I think education is the most interesting application, and I think health is the second most interesting. Obviously there's commercial opportunity in sales and service type things, and that'll happen. You don't need any foundation type engagement on that. We brainstormed a lot with Sol Khan, and it's looks very promising, because a class size of 30 or 20, you can't give a student individual attention. You can't understand their motivation or what keeping them engaged. They might be ahead of the class, they might be behind, and it looks like in many subject areas, by having this and having dialogues and giving feedback, for the first time, we'll succeed in helping education. We have to admit, except for the sort of prosaic thing of looking up Wikipedia articles or helping you type things and print them out nice, the notion that computers were going to revolutionize education largely are still more in front of us than behind us. I mean, yes, some games draw kids in, but the average math score in the U.S. hasn't gone up much over the last 30 years. And so, the people who do computers can't say, hey, we want credit for that. Credit for what? It's not a lot better than it was. So obviously the computers didn't perform some miracle there.
Yeah.
And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we will think of learning and how you can be helped in your learning in a very different way than just looking up material.